You wake up tired, you've been working, you've been trying, but it feels like nobody sees how hard you're pushing. You post online, maybe someone notices. You tell a friend, maybe they nod, but deep down you still feel like you're drowning alone. Here's the truth no one wants to hear, nobody cares about your struggle. And that's not a bad thing, because the truth is, struggle is the silent part of the journey. It's the invisible layer that builds your character. It's not designed to be validated, it's meant to refine you. We live in a world obsessed with being seen. We crave applause for effort, but applause doesn't build legacy. Discipline does. You don't get stronger by sharing your pain, you get stronger by growing through it. People don't rally behind someone because they suffered, they rally because that person transformed, because they took their pain and created something from it. There's a moment in life when we begin to understand something crucial, that not everything we go through is meant to be shared, broadcasted, or applauded. The most defining parts of our lives are often invisible to the world. Struggle, in its truest form, is deeply personal. It's not a performance. It's not content for likes or validation. It's the quiet, uncomfortable process of becoming. Struggle teaches us what comfort never could. It introduces us to ourselves in raw, unfiltered ways. It's in the late nights when doubt is loudest. It's in the early mornings when no one sees us still pushing forward despite yesterday's failures. This space where effort meets isolation is sacred. It's where character is formed. It's where integrity is born, and no one is supposed to witness it. The problem is we've been conditioned to think that struggle only matters if it's recognized. That if we don't get a response, if no one claps, then maybe what we're going through isn't real or worthy. But that's a dangerous lie. The value of our experience does not increase with visibility. In fact, some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones who went through hell and never made a show of it. They let their results speak. They let who they became speak louder than any cry for attention ever could. There's a kind of strength that develops in silence. When you suffer without applause, you learn resilience, you learn how to self-regulate, you learn to validate yourself. And that is freedom, when your sense of worth is no longer tied to being seen, but to being real. Struggle isn't supposed to be a badge you wear for approval. It's a process you survive, and if you're wise, it becomes something you grow from. When you try to make your struggle public too soon, you risk corrupting its purpose. Because now it's no longer about transformation, it's about reaction. And once you live for reactions, you become a slave to them. There's a difference between being authentic and seeking pity. One leads to power, the other leads to dependence. If you share your pain to inspire, that's growth. But if you share it hoping someone else will rescue you from it, you're still not owning your journey. The truth is, no one is coming to save you, and no one should have to, because you were never meant to be rescued. You were meant to be rebuilt. The ones who truly make it through struggle are the ones who accept this truth early. Not everyone will care, not everyone will understand, and that's okay, because your struggle isn't their assignment, it's yours. The loneliness you feel in those hard moments, that's not a punishment. That's the sound of you evolving, of becoming someone who can withstand pressure, who can think clearly under stress, and who knows how to move without the need for external noise. We need to stop confusing visibility with value. Just because your struggle isn't trending doesn't mean it's not working. Some of your most important breakthroughs will happen when no one is watching, no audience, no feedback, just you, your will, and your fight to keep going. Struggle has always been the birthplace of strength, but only if you respect it enough to go through it quietly. Stop trying to turn every painful moment into a story before you've lived through the ending. Let yourself feel the weight of it. Let yourself build something strong enough within that you don't need to talk about it to prove it happened. Because the reward for surviving struggle isn't sympathy, it's self-respect. It's peace. It's knowing that you've seen the darkest parts of yourself and didn't quit. That's power. That's growth. And that is yours alone to own. So when you're hurting, when you're tired, when you feel like no one sees your effort, remember, they're not supposed to. That's not the point. The point is who you become in the process. The point is whether or not you choose to keep going. Your struggle is not a performance, it is a transformation. And the best transformations are often done in silence. At some point, every person reaches a fork in the road. One path leads to sympathy, the other to growth. It's tempting to choose sympathy. It feels warm, it feels comforting. It gives you a sense of being seen and validated in your pain. But there's a hidden cost. When you lean too much into sympathy, you can lose your momentum. You start identifying with your struggle instead of rising above it. You start to believe that being understood is more important than becoming stronger, and that belief will slow you down. Growth, on the other hand, is uncomfortable. It requires responsibility. It demands you move forward, even when the world doesn't acknowledge your pain. It's lonely, it's quiet, and often it goes unnoticed until it doesn't. Because when you grow, truly grow, the change becomes impossible to ignore. Not because you talked about it, but because you became it. Sympathy might give you a moment, but growth gives you a future. We live in a world where it's easy to share our wounds. We tell our stories, and people respond with kindness, with empathy, with care. That has value. Empathy is human, but you have to be careful because sympathy, if you're not disciplined, becomes a comfort zone. You start to crave it. You start to repeat the story of your pain, not to heal, but to feel significant. It becomes a cycle. Tell the story, receive sympathy, feel better temporarily, but never move forward. Growth doesn't operate that way. Growth isn't interested in the story you tell the world. It's interested in the story you tell yourself. It asks tougher questions. What are you going to do now? How will you respond to this pain? Will you let it define you, or will you redefine yourself through it? There's a reason the people we admire most are the ones who didn't just survive hardship, but turned it into strength. They didn't stay stuck in the narrative of, look what happened to me. They shifted into, look what I did with it. That shift is where transformation lives. That shift is where you stop waiting to be comforted and start building something better. We need to stop confusing attention with healing. Just because people acknowledge your pain doesn't mean you're growing through it. Sometimes all it means is you're becoming dependent on their validation. Growth asks you to walk without applause, to keep going when no one says, I'm proud of you. It asks you to show up for yourself even when the world has no idea how much you're hurting. That's the kind of power no one can give you and no one can take away. Sympathy might feel good in the moment, but it won't build your future. It won't build your resilience. It won't give you the tools to climb out of the hole you're in. Growth will. Growth will challenge you, break you, rebuild you. It will teach you how to take ownership of your story, not just repeat it. You weren't meant to be pitied. You were meant to be powerful. You were meant to rise. You were meant to find a way, even when the way was unclear. And you were meant to do it not so others would applaud, but so you could look in the mirror and respect the person staring back. Growth is greater than sympathy because growth lasts. It leaves a legacy. Sympathy might comfort you, but growth will elevate you. Sympathy might give you a hand to hold, but growth gives you legs to stand on. Don't chase the temporary high of being understood. Chase the permanent change that comes from evolving. Let your story be more than just what happened to you. Let it be about what you did next. So if no one's cheering for you today, that's okay. If no one's offering you sympathy, that's okay too. You don't need it. What you need is discipline. What you need is courage. What you need is to believe that growth is worth the pain, and it is. Every single time. Because while sympathy makes people feel for you, growth makes people learn from you. And that is far more powerful. We live in an era fueled by visibility. The more attention you get, the more people believe you're doing something right. But attention is fleeting. It rises fast and fades even faster. What truly lasts, what people remember long after the spotlight fades, is the legacy you leave behind. And that legacy isn't built through noise, it's built through discipline. Discipline is the quiet force behind greatness. It doesn't demand recognition. It doesn't beg for applause. It shows up when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when no one is watching. It's the decision to keep going when motivation has long disappeared. It's the commitment to your principles when your feelings want to run the other way. And that kind of consistency, day in and day out, is what creates something that lasts. Attention might open doors, but discipline builds the house. The world is filled with talented people who started strong but couldn't sustain it. Not because they lacked potential, but because they lacked discipline. They mistook hype for progress. They fed off the reactions, but never built the internal habits required to carry them through the long, quiet seasons. Discipline isn't sexy. It's not glamorous. It doesn't produce viral moments. What it produces is results. Long-term, sustainable, undeniable results. It's the writer who wakes up at 5 a.m. to write when the world is still asleep. It's the athlete who trains every day, not for the camera, but for the mission. It's the leader who holds themselves to a higher standard, even when no one's keeping score. You can't build a legacy off moments. You build it off habits. Attention will make people talk about you for a day. Discipline will make people remember you for a lifetime. The greatest names we know, those who left something meaningful behind, weren't just talented or lucky, they were disciplined. They showed up again and again, especially when it was difficult. They built systems, routines, and standards that allowed them to operate at a high level over time. It's easy to be motivated when everyone's watching. It's harder when no one is, but that's where the difference is made. In the shadows, in the repetition, in the thousand silent victories no one else sees. Legacy isn't the result of one big moment. It's the outcome of countless small decisions made with integrity and consistency. It's built in those mornings you don't want to get up, but you do. In those workouts you don't want to complete, but you push through. In the hard conversations you don't want to have, but you choose courage over comfort. When you live for attention, your effort depends on the response. When you live with discipline, your effort depends on your values. Attention fades, trends change, algorithms shift. What's viral today is forgotten tomorrow. But your work, your real work, will stand the test of time if it's built on discipline. The people who matter don't care how loud you were. They care how solid you are. They care whether you delivered, whether you kept your word, whether you showed up when it was hard. Legacy is the result of a life lived on purpose. Not loud, but clear. Not perfect, but committed. The world doesn't need more performers. It needs more builders, more doers, more people who understand that attention is rented, but discipline is owned. You don't have to be the loudest. You don't have to be the most followed. You just have to be the most consistent. Because while others are chasing applause, you're building something that will still matter long after the noise dies down. So if you're not getting the recognition right now, that's okay. Stay disciplined. If no one is noticing the effort you're putting in, keep going. If it feels like you're behind while others are being celebrated, trust the process. Discipline always wins in the long run. Not because it's loud, but because it lasts. Let your consistency be louder than your words. Let your actions speak for you. Let your habits write your legacy. Because in the end, the people who make the biggest impact are not the ones who chased attention, they're the ones who mastered discipline. One of the hardest things you'll ever have to do on your journey is let go of the need to be understood.
As human beings, we're wired to crave connection. We want others to understand our pain, our intentions, our reasons. We want to explain ourselves, to justify our decisions, to be seen as we truly are. But the deeper you go in your growth, the more you'll realize being understood is not a requirement for becoming who you're meant to be. In fact, needing to be understood by everyone can become a form of self-sabotage, because not everyone is supposed to understand your path. Not everyone is capable of seeing your vision. And if you spend your energy constantly trying to explain your struggle, your calling, your change, you waste time that could be spent building, healing, evolving. When you're growing, changing, or breaking away from the version of yourself the world has always known, you will be misunderstood. People will question your choices. They'll label you based on their limited perspective. They'll reduce your transformation to acting different or pulling away. But you're not here to make sense to everyone. You're here to make sense to yourself. The need to be understood often comes from a place of insecurity. We want others to agree with us so we feel we're on the right track. But leadership, especially self-leadership, requires you to walk ahead before the crowd knows where you're going. That means people will guess. That means they'll get it wrong, and that means you'll have to be okay with silence where you once had validation. Some people aren't ready to see the version of you that you're becoming, and that's not your job to fix. Your job is to grow anyway. Your job is to evolve even if it makes people uncomfortable, even if they walk away, even if they talk behind your back. That's the price of growth. It's often paid in misunderstanding. Letting go of the need to be understood frees you. It releases you from constantly performing for approval. You stop explaining your boundaries, your pace, your ambition. You stop over-explaining why you're not available like you used to be, or why you're not as reactive as before. You realize that maturity means doing what's right for your future, even when others don't get it. There's real strength in moving forward without applause, real courage in choosing silence over justification. Every time you let go of needing someone's approval to take your next step, you reclaim your power. You don't owe the world an explanation for your healing. You don't have to translate your pain into language others can digest. You don't need to shrink your decisions to fit into someone else's comfort zone. People understand at the level of their own experience. If someone hasn't walked the road you're on, they're not going to get it, and that's okay. They don't have to. What matters most is whether you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. You will find peace when you stop chasing clarity in the minds of others and start building clarity within yourself. The truth is, some people only understood the version of you that needed to be liked, accepted, and tolerated. Now that you're choosing growth over comfort, purpose over popularity, clarity over chaos, they can't place you anymore. That's not a problem. That's proof that you're growing. Let them misunderstand you. Let them assume. Let them talk. What matters is that you keep walking your path with integrity. You don't need to be seen to be significant. You don't need to be agreed with to be aligned. You don't need validation to have vision. In the end, the people who are meant to walk with you will catch up. They'll see your growth not because you explained it perfectly, but because you lived it fully. Your actions will speak what your words never could. So let go of the need to be understood. It's not your job to make sense to everyone. It's your job to become the truest version of yourself, whether they get it or not. Everyone faces struggle. Pain, setbacks, loss, failure, they're universal. What separates those who stay stuck from those who rise is not the depth of their struggle, but what they become through it. Struggle may be part of your story, but transformation is the part that truly speaks. Transformation is what people remember. It's what inspires. Because while struggle explains where you've been, transformation shows where you're going. There's a point where we all have to decide, do I want to be known for what hurt me or for what I did with that hurt? Do I want to keep repeating the story of how life broke me down, or do I want to write a new one about how I built myself back up? Pain can be powerful, but it was never meant to be the destination. It's just a passage, a fire you walk through, not a fire you sit in. The longer you camp in your struggle, the more it becomes your identity. The danger isn't in having pain. The danger is in staying in it long after it has served its purpose. Transformation begins when you stop narrating the pain and start doing the work, quietly, consistently, without needing the world to applaud every small step. It's the discipline of healing, the choice to learn, grow, and rebuild, not because anyone is watching, but because you're done letting struggle define you. You don't need to keep broadcasting your wounds to prove your strength. You don't need to relive the trauma to validate your growth. At some point you shift, you evolve, and you let the results speak. Transformation is undeniable. You don't have to explain it. People see it. They see it in the way you carry yourself, in how you show up, in what you no longer react to. They see it in your presence, your peace, your maturity. Transformation has a language of its own. It's silent, but powerful. And that's what the world really needs. Not another story about how hard life has been, but living proof that pain doesn't have to have the final word. That rock bottom isn't the end. That healing is possible. That people can change. That the strongest version of yourself often comes after the most painful season. But none of that happens if you cling to the struggle. You have to let it go to rise. You have to stop needing others to see how much you suffered, and instead focus on how much you've grown. Because real strength isn't proven in your suffering. It's proven in your resurrection. You were never meant to stay broken. You were never meant to live in victimhood. The world will feel sorry for your pain, but it will follow your transformation. That's what creates movement. That's what lights a fire in others. Not that you got knocked down, but that you got back up and became better, wiser, stronger because of it. Transformation turns pain into power. It turns wounds into wisdom. It turns loss into legacy. And the best part? You don't need to say a word. Your evolution is the message. Your self-mastery is the proof. Your calm, your clarity, your commitment, they tell the story. So if you're in the middle of a storm, don't make the storm your identity. Don't make pain your platform. Use it. Learn from it. Let it change you. Let it humble you. Let it sharpen your character, test your patience, build your resilience, and then let it go. Because you don't have to carry the weight of the past to honor what it taught you. Every scar on your soul has a purpose, but only if you keep moving forward. Don't keep retelling the story of who you were in survival mode. Start telling the story of who you've become in your healing. That's what changes lives. That's what turns your story from tragedy into testimony. In the end, your transformation will say what your struggle never could. It will speak of courage, of tenacity, of growth, of quiet battles won in silence. And the people who need that message, they won't just hear it, they'll feel it. So stop clinging to the struggle. Let transformation speak for you, because nothing is louder, nothing is more powerful than a life that proves pain was never the end. It was just the beginning. The moment you begin to walk your own path, you'll be tempted to look around for support, for recognition, for someone to say you're doing great. But true ownership of your journey starts when you stop expecting anything in return. No applause, no validation, no one to cheer you on. Just you, the road ahead, and a decision to keep going, regardless of who notices. Ownership is powerful because it puts the responsibility where it belongs in your hands. It's not dependent on someone believing in you, understanding you, or rewarding you. It's about showing up for your life because it matters to you, because your purpose is bigger than your need to be praised. When you expect recognition, you tie your progress to something outside of your control. And that's a fragile way to live, because sometimes the people closest to you won't understand what you're trying to do. Sometimes your efforts will be ignored. Sometimes your breakthroughs will happen in silence. If your motivation depends on being seen, you'll burn out the moment you're overlooked. But when you own your journey without expectation, you become unstoppable. You no longer need someone to validate your effort because you know why you're doing it. You're not chasing approval. You're building something real. You're not performing for others. You're becoming someone better for yourself, for your future, for the life you're building on purpose. The truth is, people won't always see your sacrifices. They won't understand the weight you carry. They won't recognize the internal battles you fight every day just to stay on track. That's okay. They're not supposed to. Your journey isn't theirs. It's yours. And the more you stop looking sideways, the more powerful your focus becomes. When you stop expecting others to understand, you free yourself from disappointment. When you stop needing constant affirmation, you step into self-leadership. You stop living on borrowed confidence. You start generating your own. You stop asking, do they get me? And start saying, I get me. And that's enough. Your growth doesn't need to be explained. Your progress doesn't need a witness. The internal wins, the quiet mornings, the self-discipline, the boundaries you kept, the temptations you resisted, those count. Even if no one claps, even if no one notices, there's honor in doing the right thing without expecting a reward. There's strength in showing up when you could have quit. There's integrity in doing it your way, your pace, with your own values leading the way. That's ownership. That's how you build a life rooted in authenticity, not applause. And yes, it can feel lonely at times. You'll wonder if it's worth it. You'll ask yourself why you're working so hard when no one seems to care. But that's exactly when you're being tested. That's the moment your character is being forged. Because anyone can stay disciplined when the crowd is watching. Few can stay disciplined when it's just them, their vision, and silence. The people who truly succeed, the ones who leave a mark, aren't always the ones who are the most praised. They're the ones who stayed committed through the quiet. The ones who kept their promises to themselves when no one else was checking in. The ones who were fueled by purpose, not applause. When you let go of expectation, you stop waiting and you start becoming. You take action, not because someone told you to, but because you believe in what you're doing. You make decisions that honor your values, not someone else's opinion. You build momentum from within, and that's what creates real power. Because once your motivation is internal, no one can take it from you. So own your journey, fully, without needing a stage, without needing agreement, without needing a reward. Just own it. Every failure, every step forward, every quiet win. Own it because it's yours, because it's shaping you, because it's taking you somewhere better, whether or not anyone sees it happening. Your journey matters, your progress counts, and your future is worth the fight. Don't waste your time waiting to be understood. Live in a way that you understand, that you respect, that you are proud of, because in the end, that's what really matters. You don't need applause when you have purpose. You don't need recognition when you have resilience. You don't need expectations to be met when you've already decided this journey is mine.